What if I told you that some of the most horrific human experiments in history were conducted by doctors who later walked free and even helped develop modern medicine? Today we're diving into one of World War II's darkest secrets that Japan tried desperately to hide from the world. Unit 731 sounds like just another military designation, but behind this innocent name lies a story so disturbing that it remained classified for decades. While the world focused on Nazi concentration camps, something equally sinister was happening in the remote forests of Manchuria, China. In 1936, Japanese microbiologist Shiro Ishii established what appeared to be a water purification unit in occupied Manchuria. The facility covered 6 square kilometers and employed over 3,000 people. But water purification was just a cover story. This was actually the headquarters for Japan's biological warfare program. And what happened inside those walls would shock even hardened war crime investigators. The Japanese military had become obsessed with biological weapons after World War I showed the devastating potential of chemical warfare. They wanted to develop diseases that could wipe out enemy populations while leaving infrastructure intact. But to perfect these weapons, they needed test subjects, and they found them among Chinese civilians, Soviet prisoners, and other captives. The victims were referred to as logs, a dehumanizing term that made it easier for researchers to conduct their experiments. These weren't random acts of cruelty. They were systematic scientific studies designed to understand how biological agents affected the human body. Prisoners were infected with plague, anthrax, cholera, and dozens of other diseases, while researchers carefully documented the progression of symptoms. Some experiments involved freezing limbs to study frostbite, then thawing them to observe gangrene development. Others tested the limits of human endurance through dehydration, starvation, and exposure to extreme temperatures. Vivisections were performed on conscious patients to examine how diseases affected internal organs in real time. What makes this even more chilling is that many perpetrators were highly educated doctors and scientists from prestigious Japanese universities. They convinced themselves they were advancing medical knowledge for the greater good of the Japanese Empire. This wasn't random violence. It was methodical research conducted by people who had sworn to do no harm. The scale of these operations was massive. Conservative estimates suggest that over 10,000 people died in Unit 731 experiments, though the true number could be much higher. Satellite facilities operated throughout Japanese-occupied territory, creating a network of biological warfare research that spanned continents. As the war turned against Japan, evidence of these activities became increasingly dangerous. When Soviet forces approached Manchuria in 1945, Ishii ordered the complete destruction of Unit 731. Buildings were dynamited, documents were burned, and remaining prisoners were executed to eliminate witnesses. The cover-up was so thorough that many details only emerged decades later. Here's where the story takes an even darker turn. After Japan's surrender, American occupation forces discovered what had happened, but made a calculated decision that still haunts history. Instead of prosecuting the war criminals, they offered immunity in exchange for research data. The United States was entering the Cold War and feared that biological warfare knowledge might give the Soviet Union an advantage. So they made a deal with the devil. Shiro Ishii and his colleagues provided detailed reports of their human experiments, and in return, they walked free. Some even went on to have successful careers in medicine and academia. This decision meant that unlike Nazi war criminals, who faced justice at Nuremberg, most Unit 731 researchers never answered for their crimes. They returned to normal lives while their victims remained forgotten. It wasn't until the 1980s that survivors and researchers began speaking openly about what really happened. The legacy of Unit 731 continues to complicate relations between Japan, China, and other affected nations. While Germany has acknowledged and apologized for Holocaust atrocities, Japan's response to Unit 731 has been more ambiguous. Some officials have questioned the historical evidence, while others have offered limited acknowledgments without full accountability. This story reveals uncomfortable truths about how political expediency can override justice, and how scientific advancement sometimes comes at an unthinkable human cost. The next time you hear about medical breakthroughs, remember that progress isn't always achieved through ethical means, and some knowledge comes with blood on its hands.